This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Hover, our favorite domain name registrar. You can go to hover.com and use the promo code GAMES for 10% off your first purchase. Plus, from now until September 1st, they are running an additional sale on the new top-level domains, so you can register idlethumbs.manager. Why not?
Science.Christmas.
A very J. Allard.Christmas.
nickbrecken.dance.
Complainer.gripe.
Busted.equipment.
Good.
I like your .cards.
Fuck off.
Condoms.condos. Gaddafi.coffee.
Cool.club.
All these and more at hover.com with the promo code GAMES for 10% off your first purchase, in addition to these discounted, ridiculous top-level domains.
Idlethumbs.computer.
Feces.catering.
Oh, God.
No. Okay. Latest.codes. That's where you go for the latest codes, Chris.
No, thanks, Jake.
Videogames.luxury. Give a domain to your friend with the .gift TLD. I got you a gift, Chris. It's chrisramo.gift.
chrisramo.gift.
Yeah, I knew.
All right.
Windows installer files.cab.
You son of a bitch. Fuck you.
What?
God damn it. All right. Let's record this stupid podcast.
It's August 6th, 2014.
This is Idle Thumbs 170. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
And I'm Danielle Riendo.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jake.
Yo.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Settling into your...
How's that
ouch.
hunk? Yeah.
I ate the hunk already.
Yeah, the hunk's gone.
I had never heard of Big Hunk until you introduced it to me.
I didn't introduce it to you. A reader introduced it into our office because I told him to get Sean Vanman a box of Big Hunks.
That's true.
So I secondhand introduced it.
David? Yeah.
Huh?
That was Secret Asian Man from the
Yes.
forums.
It was David.
Mm-hmm.
The best. The best at delivering us too much candy.
Yes.
The best at hunks. It's a beautiful thing to be, I think.
We froze those hunks. They're really good frozen, it turns out, if you like them at all. We don't need to talk about big hunks.
Yeah, we probably don't. The bomb-castification of Idle Thumbs continues.
Well, we just talk about big hunks all the time?
Candy, shit,
I could talk about a hunk,
Yeah?
and it's almost even topical.
Okay.
Potentially.
Topical hunk.
All right, ready?
Sure.
All right, ready for this? I had
Maybe?
the greatest sci-fi weekend of my life.
Yeah.
And it started with a hunk, and it's amazing that he's
How did
a
it
hunk.
end?
It ended in a really beautiful way with the death of a fucked up alien human hybrid.
Okay, so it started with a hunk. It ended up
Okay.
with... Okay, we're good.
All right, here we go. So Chris Pratt, who was once Andy the total loser on Parks and Recreation.
Wait, is this just how you watched Guardians of the Galaxy?
No. There's so much more than just Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
I promise I'll make it quick, though. Anyway, it's amazing to me that Chris Pratt is now, like, the hottest man in the universe with a crazy six-pack, and he's, like, a superstar. He's in Guardians of the Galaxy. This was interesting to me. I watched it on opening night, and the movie itself is pretty good. His abs are really good.
Yeah, he was beefed up in that movie.
So, okay, I have a possibly, like, really ignorant question to ask about this. Is it just a thing now that has to happen if you're a male leading man that you just have to get ripped on demand?
Pretty
Is that just a
much.
thing?
For like
Because
a
if you-
superhero movie, I think so, yeah.
almost any movie seemingly, right? Like if your shirt's going to be off. Because
Yeah.
if you watch
It's not true in
films-
comedy movies.
That's
No,
true.
well, not if your character is schlubby by intention. That's different.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But like, or scrawny by intention. But if you're supposed to be attractive, that's what I'm saying. And so,
Yeah.
because if you watch even like action movies, like straight up action movies from a few decades ago or more, that was just not, you didn't, like the dudes who were in movies did not look like that.
Yeah, you look at Jimmy Stewart in like Rear Window or something. He looks
Well,
like a scrawny
Yeah,
dude.
but he's confined to a wheelchair. That's a little different.
Right,
I'm
but
talking-
even he has his shirt. There's like a whole scene where he just has his
that's
shirt
true,
off, and
right.
it's sort of
It's
like this is
yeah.
just what a dude looked like in know
Yeah.
the 50s, and that
Sure.
was fine. Anyway,
I think some of like it feels like that was more a thing in the 80s too than it was like it fell out of favor in the 90s and the
But
2000s.
but
And it
in
feels
the
like
80s, it would be actual bodybuilder guys or like guys who were huge. But now it's like if you're Chris Pratt, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
someone like Chris Pratt, had he been in like a comedy action movie in the 80s, would not have become enormous. Like he would.
That's
not,
true.
He would not have become 6-pack chiseled ab man.
although like the Marvel movies when dudes have their shirt off, it's weird. Like the camera, like the needle drifts out of the male gaze a little bit for a second when they show off guys. It's really strange.
does,
They're
yeah.
shot like just like dude chests in Marvel movies are shot like a little bit different than they are in like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or something. It's very strange.
what do you mean? Can you qualify how?
I mean, like in Thor 2, when he takes off his shirt and walks around, like dudes don't notice that anything's happening. Like it's not like aspirational buff guy, but like straight dudes don't notice. But like the audience noise is very different,
yeah,
and in a way
that's
that,
on purpose, though, right?
yes,
I
but
mean, that's totally
it's
intentional.
almost like hetero female gaze. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much what they're going for in this. I think, yeah.
but that puts it in a slightly different place in the specifics of Marvel movies that versus like just a ripped dude.
That's what I'm talking about, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the difference between like an 80s action movie where it's like the whole point of it is to
Right,
be
but like
front
in
and
like
center
in, like in
bodybuilder
80s
guy.
horror movies, the boyfriends are still super beefy, but it's not like there's no. That's just because they want chiseled LA dude in that role.
Mhm.
But like in the same way, like I think like all the dudes in the Walking Dead TV show, except for the fat guys, are probably super ripped and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like which is I think what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it just
yeah.
it feels like there's intentionality to the way that dudes get shot with their clothes
I see.
off in Marvel movies in particular, or maybe those are just the only movies that I've seen where there's just ridiculously ripped dudes that are genre movies that aren't about like explicitly about testosterone,
Right. Sure.
like exusion.
Yeah, those movies definitely try to cast a wider net.
Yeah.
And succeed clearly
Yeah.
at that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the movie's
Okay,
pretty
sorry to,
good,
like, just
even though the
totally
abs
sidetrack.
are, I enjoyed the movie. I didn't think it was like, an amazing cinematic achievement,
It was
but I thought
fun,
it was
though.
very fun and goofy and
Sure.
entertaining.
I have not seen it, but I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worthwhile, I think, if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking for something that is fun and light and so on and so forth. And then I immediately dipped in. So Friday night, I watched Guardians of the Galaxy, opening night. Maybe not opening night. I guess it technically opens on
Thursday at midnight.
Thursday at
whatever.
midnight, first weekend. And then I immediately went into an Alien movie marathon where I watched
yeah.
Alien 1 and Aliens on Saturday night. And then on Sunday afternoon, I watched Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. And I
you
watched
get-
Prometheus a week ago.
Did
so I
you
got
watch the
whole
times
thing.
that the alien fought Predator though? Because those
Not yet. I mean, I've seen them in my life. I've seen them like
Okay, I
years ago.
haven't.
Yeah, I have
haven't
seen
either,
those
yeah.
amazing films, but I'm not really counting
I
them
actually
as part
also
of the...
haven't seen Alien 3 or 4.
Oh yeah, you know what? I hadn't either, not all the way through. I feel like it was the same situation with you and Jaws, perhaps. Like I'd seen
Oh,
a
sure.
scene here or there, but not like
Me and Jaws go way back,
You and Jaws,
but only very
Your old-
vaguely.
Your old bro Jawsy.
only Jaws checks in.
Jaws checked in. It was.
I'm
go
curious
on.
to watch Alien 3, actually, because David Fincher directed that, right?
Yeah, it was
That
his
makes
first
me-
movie.
Yeah, that makes me super curious to see it.
It's
I watched
Man.
it. I didn't see it
It's,
in the
wait,
theater,
what?
but
It's what?
Oh, go ahead.
It is.
I don't know what you're getting at, actually.
It is a very complex movie in terms of like my opinion on it. It's sort of like there are things that are really great about it, and there are things that are really terrible about it. And it had a really storied production. Like, it was awful. It was horrible. David Fincher was brought in like right before they were about to start shooting. The studio chopped it up without his consent. He's like the only director of one of these 4 movies that refuses to like acknowledge the movie and be part of the making of materials later on and stuff like that. So it's actually really fascinating.
I saw that on VHS, and I saw it way after it came out, and all that I remember is that the CG on the alien, because the alien's fucking CG all over the place in that movie. I remember it just looking like someone was waving like a black water balloon in front of the video.
Yep.
It was really strange.
It's pretty atrocious. I mean, it's from 1991, I think, maybe 1992.
Oh, really? That's earlier than I thought.
Because that also must drive David Fincher insane, because that guy's all about like seamless integration of everything in his movies. Everything feels like it exists inside the frame.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, to his credit, they use practical effects more often than CG.
Right, but the times when it's like crawling on the ceiling or something, there's some shot where I just like laugh. Anyway,
wherever it's crawling, it's atrocious.
That's all that I remember from that movie, which means I should probably go and watch Alien 3 and 4.
Yeah, you should, actually. I mean, now everybody was telling me, Alien Resurrection.
Are you like ramping up for Alien Resurrection?
I just wanted to see it.
Resurrection? Or?
Oh, the game is Alien Isolation.
Oh, Alien Isolation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Alien Resurrection is Alien 4.
Okay,
yeah, basically.
Okay. I haven't seen
it's
that
the
one
fourth
either.
movie.
So Alien Isolation, is this like in preparation for that, or do you just kind of feel like
sort of
watching some aliens?
This, and also I just was in this big sci-fi mood, and it was myself and a couple of friends, and we were all sort of talking about, my girlfriend hadn't seen them in a really long time, and she never saw anything after the first movie, so it was kind of like, oh, we need to just do this, and this seemed like the perfect weekend to do it because not much else was going on. So
Sarah and I had been talking about watching Alien 3 because of the like contradictions almost you were bringing up, and so you going through that like live tweet parade over the weekend like re-energized my intention to finally watch that movie.
I think it's worthwhile.
I intend to watch it.
I do think, I really love that I was able to put this time into it this weekend and watch them all through, because there really is just a sort of bizarre continuity, and all the differences between the movies really do sort of shine when you just watch them back to back like we did.
So that's an interesting case, right? Because those are like, there are other series that are like that, right? Like there's, I haven't seen these movies obviously, but like Harry Potter, and then there's like James Bond, right? There's these series that are series technically, but like are directed by different people. But in the case of both of those, they kind of go through, well, like Harry Potter, those movies all came out within like what, a decade? So they all I would imagine feel like they're all from the same tonal space.
And there's a continuity.
Mainly anyway, although I know different directors have their own flavor. And then James Bond goes through like
chunks.
half decade, 2 decade long chunks. But the Alien movies, it's kind of just like 4 different ideas, right? Like as far as I understand it.
Sort of. I mean, there is continuity. It is actually one storyline.
Right, but in the plot. But I mean, but that's right. But like
each one is such
I've
a
only
different...
seen the first 2, and they're totally different.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Sure, they take place in the same universe and like have character that are the same, but like those are totally different movies in terms of what their identity is.
And the third one is even more radically different.
That's what
and the fourth one
right?
is, I want to use the metaphor outer space, but like it is really so far from the first 3 movies.
So that's what I'm talking about, right? Like that's a fairly rare thing, because it's not even like those movies came out. It's not like there was like reboots decades apart.
Right.
I mean, I guess
the third one was actually just called Alien 3. Like they didn't try to even
right. Yeah. And then Alien Resurrection came out the same decade as that one, right? They're both 90s.
They were all about.
I thought
6
Resurrection
years apart.
it was early 2000s. Was it not?
So. I don't know.
It was 97. It was like 79, 86, 92, and then 97. So they were all like 5 to 6 to 7 years apart. Like, and continuously. It was never more than that or less than that in between them. It's just really, really fascinating. I mean, Alien, the first Alien, is my favorite movie of all time. Like nothing has ever kind of come close to that for me. I don't think anything, I hope something does, in the future. But it is just like the best conceived, best shot, horror movie, I think, ever in the history of film. And like, yes, I'm sure that's a big, grand, bold opinion, but And then the second movie is, an action movie. And everybody kind of talks about that. And, I actually wrote a debate thing with one of my coworkers about whether the first or the second is better, which is, the big nerd debate.
It's not, though, because you're right.
Yeah,
I agree completely. Better. Yeah. Well, obviously I do. Anyway, so did the readers of Polygon.com. We put a poll in there, and, it beat Aliens 2-3. It was pretty clear. Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty good ratio for Alien. Anyway, Aliens is also interesting, though, because it does have the sort of Vietnam War movie connotations and some interesting stuff there that I wasn't really giving it full credit for in my mind. In my mind, Alien is here, and Aliens is, I'm making a not friendly radio comparison here. But anyway, far ahead.
With her hands, yeah.
And then Alien 3 is just this dark, apocalyptic, miserable hellhole of a movie, but it's still kind of good. But it's unpleasant to watch.
That butt is not dissuading me, though.
Right? It's just not as
that
pleasant
butt is
to
not
watch.
Dissuading me, Chris Ramo.
I mean, the really crazy thing, Charles Dance is in it for a huge part of. He plays Tywin Lannister in the Game of Thrones
I've never seen
TV. Okay, never mind. It's set on a prison planet and a miserable, horrible prison planet.
I mean, that's fine. I'll take I will take it on faith that it's a miserable hellhole of a movie.
Yeah, but I still liked it.
Yeah, as I say,
I will.
That is not inherently a negative.
Sure.
You talking about the Alien movies makes me, 1, want to finally watch 3 and 4.
Yes.
2, watch Alien 1 again, and 3, play Alien Isolation, which is annoying because
I know.
It's
2 months out, from today.
Oh, wow, it's really soon. Okay, good. So I'm not as annoyed.
Oh, you were annoyed because you thought it was just going to put you in
just infinite limbo,
mode. Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whereas instead, it'll come out in 2 months. I'll buy it and then I'll play it for 5 minutes and then forget about it. So
as it goes.
Jake, video games, Rod.
Although,
yeah.
I talked about this for 3 seconds, I think, on one episode or another. But I've been using the Steam in-home streaming stuff.
Yeah. Ooh.
I guess that my network setup is just really good for it. It's shit for everything else. My Wi-Fi drops all the time. It's just a big fucking turd. But I have my gaming PC off in the back corner of my house, and I have a 3 or 4 year old Mac Mini plugged into my TV that I just use for streaming. I might have talked about this in stupid detail.
I think
before.
you mentioned it, but you didn't. You hadn't gotten a good test.
I finally wired up my PC, so they both connect through the router now, and I think that it's a gigabit router, but it's just seamless as shit. It's crazy. Yeah. So
what's happening? So what is your
the way Steam home streaming works?
Rendering the games.
Yes. So I run Steam on both my PC off in the corner of my house and my Mac Mini that's plugged into my TV. I have a wired Xbox controller plugged into my Mac Mini, and some guy wrote a third party completely OS 10
native
device compatible driver for the 360 controller, which Steam recognizes because it reciprocates to the OS. But Steam in the bedroom, we've talked about this in terms of Steam OS and stuff, but Steam off in the corner of my house just renders the game and transcodes it in as close to real time as it can get to my TV. So I have a Mac Mini running big picture mode on one of my the multiple desktops that I have set up on that machine. So I scroll over to that and hit my games library, and it just silently actually works successfully in the way
That's awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't have to mark. I thought that I'd have to mark games for streaming or do some sort of setup or something. Having both copies of Steam signed in, logged in as me, in the same subnet or whatever in my house network, I click on games installed, and the games that I have local have a slightly different icon, and the other ones just say parentheses streamed.
Oh, cool!
But
that's awesome.
You just hit play, it goes full screen, and then the game just fucking loads up.
Yeah,
Nice.
and it seems way more responsive than it would if I was playing it locally because it's completely silent. It does an OS 10 full screen transition where it slides out of the way and everything fades out, and then the game just comes up without anything happening. It's fucking weird. It's weird. And that's
awesome.
I mean, I know
I get that.
Brecken tried it and he said that he had some latency issues and some glitches, and I think Will Smith said the same thing during the beta. But for me, I have not. I mean, I haven't actually tried playing any really heavily twitchy stuff.
Sure. Like a fighting game or something.
Yeah, I didn't try playing TF. I didn't try playing anything competitive. I played a little bit of
Shovel Knight?
I played a couple levels of Shovel Knight, which was fine. It actually, I'd been playing last year. I played or 2 years ago now, 8 years ago, a long ass time ago. I played through Super Metroid on that computer on an emulator with a Super Nintendo to USB adapter.
Nice.
And there was more lag on that USB adapter than I'm experiencing over streaming.
Right, yeah.
Like it's barely perceptible, but like I don't really notice. And there's some streaming artifacts. Like it looks like
Sure,
a
it's being
JPEG,
transcoded, yeah.
like which is noticeable, especially on like a pixel precise game like Shovel Knight. But I was able to play through a couple bosses of that. I finally went back to Jazzpunk for a little while, and I played most of the second episode of The Wolf Among Us, and just being able to just be like boop, 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 and just browse through my Steam library on my TV from my computer. It was nice, and it made me want to play more games because I haven't had.
That's awesome.
I've never had my PC
I mean,
hooked up to my living room TV before.
So you could totally imagine a thing that.
Oh, I just want a Roku that does only this now.
Yeah,
like,
right? Where you just
or
plug
like
it in an HDMI to
the
your
fucking
TV.
Steam client for iOS, if that supported streaming, because you can pair Bluetooth controllers to iOS devices now. So you could conceivably just buy an iPod Touch or have your existing iPad or iPhone, plug it into HDMI, and stream your Steam library off of it if they supported it, which they don't.
But they could.
But right, yeah, I mean, there's other live transcoding
If the Steam
apps.
app on iOS.
If the Steam app on iOS supported streaming, you
Yeah.
could conceivably pair a controller to your phone and
take
play
that anywhere. And,
right, because I know like a native port to iOS of BioShock
Or I
was
guess
just
not take it
announced.
anywhere. You still
Yeah,
have to be in
which
your
actually
home.
looks and plays really
Yeah,
well.
there's the
Oh, I totally missed this announcement. I saw
Wait,
people talk about it. But
2K China.
I think so.
One of the overseas 2K divisions did a port of BioShock 1 to iOS, and I read the article. I read the write-up for it, I think, on Polygon, and they said it has touch controls and stuff. But the thing that obviously makes it nicest is if you have a stand for your iPad, you can just pair an iOS-compatible dual-stick gamepad to it, and they just support the console controls on it. Which I don't know if I would ever buy BioShock to play on an iOS device with a controller.
Right.
But
not. But hey, why not? Whatever. Might as well exist.
I mean, I think they did it probably because XCOM did well for them, which seems like apples and oranges to me, but I guess it's just sort of, let's try it.
Yeah.
But seeing that stuff and thinking about that coupled with my experiences with Steam streaming, where I was like, holy fuck, Steam can just take over any device in your house if they bother to get the streaming protocol working in a low latency enough way so that I could just plug my phone into my TV if I wanted to, and Steam would just work, or like a Roku box or an Apple TV or a streaming only Steam box when those ship in 2025 or whatever. But like, it seems like it is really finicky, like your PC config versus your network at home. Like,
Sure.
I'm sure there's a lot of places where it can still shit
one
the
of those
bed.
weakest link will bring it down. Situations.
The part where I expected that I had to go through a bunch of setup and reciprocation to get it to work, and instead my computer just had all the games. Like this, I must have the filter set wrong. Like it must think this is all of my games, and just anything just went. It was cool.
That's awesome.
But I didn't play any new games with it. But like I immediately just put an hour into like a bunch of my back, like each of some things right at the top of my back catalog that I've been meaning to get back to.
You were right, by the way. BioShock iOS is 2K China.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, is that out or is it just?
No, it's
they're just
it's
press
soon,
previews.
I think
it's
actually.
they said this summer, which there's not a lot of summer left.
Yeah,
so.
I think it's coming out like next week. I know Brian Crescente, my coworker who played it, loved it, thought it was really smooth, thought the graphics looked pretty nice. I mean, obviously they're not console quality, but they're decent. They look good.
A lot of the real-time shadowing and fog and stuff got cut. It sounded like, but like on an iPad screen. Also, that thing running on an iPad Retina display, it's probably actually
looks better. Yeah,
that's probably BioShock 1 running at a resolution that is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pixels in width and height higher than the resolution that you first played BioShock 1 when it came out.
in 2007. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he thought it was great, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm almost tempted to go back and give it a shot.
Yeah.
Potentially. I don't know. Obviously, if it comes
but
out
why do that when I can just
soon
stream
enough.
it onto my TV off of Steam?
Yeah, right?
It was. I posted a couple tweets about it, and it was surprising to me how many people replied to me saying they didn't know that was a thing that you could do or that it was live. Like, I think it just sort of is silently sitting inside of Steam.
Yeah, it's not...
The same way as like the remote install thing. Oh, I haven't even tried that, but I could conceivably buy something and remote install it to my PC, and then it would pop up on my Mac and I could stream it.
Yeah, right.
It's nice.
Magic.
I don't know. It was weird. It was one of those
Technology.
things that happens that makes you wish that everything worked that way correctly.
Right.
Like when I modded my original Xbox and then streamed episodes of Lost out of my bedroom onto my TV, that was like the most interesting and like feeling like I had touched the future thing ever, because it was like way before streaming Netflix and Roku and stuff. But and then the real Xbox 360 just did that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like that, but with a video game, and I don't know.
It feels like a good experience.
It was nice. It made
it's cool.
It made me think that maybe I'll play a video game. I won't. But, I did once now.
I just accidentally noticed that Sean's Dota team, Potato Day, is playing their first, I guess, Rektreational match today, I guess.
No, they're practicing today. It's streaming tomorrow.
I'm saying the day people hear this podcast.
Hello. It's today.
August 6th, 2014. They're playing against a team called Five Alive. So I guess that'll be streamed on Twitch. I found the schedule on Rektreational.tumblr.com. So I don't know if you want to watch Sean play Dota.
I guess that's why Sean's not here, huh?
Yeah, that's why Sean's not here.
That is why he's not here. He's practicing
today.
right now.
He's getting ready.
It's REK and then Treational, as though
or Reational. REKT
Reational. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Just
yes, correct. No,
there.
you're correct. .tumblr.com, I guess. Anyway, little plug for Sean's team.
Yeah, that's Sean and Brad Muir and some other guys are on that team.
Yeah,
and then
Sean, Brad Muir's brother.
I actually don't know who all's on their team, but I know
James Layler.
Is Nick Herman from Telltale
I think
on
Nick
there?
Herman, yeah.
But then I know Brecken and Pierre Charette, who's a writer at Telltale, who was on one of the early episodes of Dota Today. I think those guys also are fielding another team called with AC, called AC Slater. So it's my dream that we have an AC Slater Potato Day.
God, that would be incredible
matchup. Like if those guys,
that would be like.
I hope the brackets are set up
Dota
such that they could
Subway Series, because you'd have Sean and Brad on one team and Nick Brecken on another team.
Yeah,
and AC. So you'd have 2 and 2.
Yeah.
Let's make t-shirts.
Oof, that'd be good.
Beat AC instead of beat LA.
Yeah, if that happens, I promise now that Chris and I will do our own commentary stream on the Idle Thumbs Twitch account.
Oh my
All right,
God.
that's
so only if that happens though. Only if those teams face each other.
Those two teams.
Anywhere in the ladder, if they face each other, we will do live commentary for sure.
Yeah, for definitely. Oh
and
man, I really hope that happens now, so we can be.
So we're like, I guess there's a guy doing a thing.
I'd tune in, for the exciting commentary and so on.
Everyone would. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, who wouldn't? Kind of a jerk.
Many listeners of this podcast would absolutely.
The first Idle Thumbs stream in months is just an incompetence parade. I mean, I guess
it's
they're
Dota.
mainly that.
Yeah. Incompetence parade with Dota.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of incompetence.
Yeah.
Go on.
I watched Alien Resurrection.
Wait, what?
What? I thought we
Sorry.
did this.
Yeah, no, we did. It's actually really a fun movie, but I wanted to get a little jab in at it too, because it's pretty.
Sure.
It's a bad good movie. So
okay,
it's like a Paul Verhoeven movie from the 80s or something.
Is it actually directed by Paul Verhoeven?
No, it's not. It was directed by the person who did. Oh God, it was written by Joss Whedon. It was directed by the person who directed Amelie. It's a French director.
Oh,
It feels like The Fifth Element or something. It's like a goofy sci-fi
weird
movie.
I don't know anything about that movie.
You should watch it if you're in the right mood. I would say that.
I don't know if I have that mood, but maybe.
Well, I understand.
I'll watch.
You should stop telling Chris things about Alien 4 because that's going to dissuade him from watching it.
It might, especially if you watch 3 and then 4 right after, because those are the two most
Whiplash?
tonally dissonant
Yeah.
of the series.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, also speaking of incompetence,
I've
played some games that I was not good at.
Oh yeah,
what? I can talk about those.
I mean, why not?
If you're interested. I played a game called Xibalba, Xibalba.
Not the Bulba.
Not the Bulba, just Xibalba, which sounds a lot like a shitty Star Wars character from like episode 1.
That's true. It does.
It was. I
Probably
couldn't
a racist
stop
one.
thinking about that. Yes, they are all racist.
Yeah, aren't they all?
Yeah. Anyway, it's a really awesome browser. Like you can play it in your browser or on your iOS device.
I played this.
Steve was
to it.
Yeah. Steve was talking about it too the other day.
Oh, okay. I think I saw him post about it. Then you replied to him.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, what? Because I saw yours because it came later.
Yeah, it's like a really good classic.
Yeah, I mean,
FPS.
it kind of just keeps going. So I stopped after like an hour. But I mean,
that's all you need.
But yeah, it was cool. It was like playing Wolfenstein or Doom. I guess closer to Doom than Wolfenstein.
Is it actually in that like effectively faux 3D pixely
Yes.
style.
It is.
Okay.
There's no like. Yes,
So it is of like the Doom marathon era of stuff.
right. It's
Pretty much.
all gameplay takes place on a flat plane, but there's
So like a 3D maze.
exactly.
It's
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but it has really
like there's no aiming up and down, and the enemies are all sprites.
Yeah, everything's
for like
sprites.
billboard sprites, that face you.
Yeah.
And you just run around and pick up
collect
weapons
keys,
and collect
you
key
get
cards.
weapons. It's very, very Doom. Only it has this really, really beautiful sound design, which I thought maybe you would be
Oh yeah,
into.
it was cool.
Yeah.
It was much more high fidelity than that's like the one high fidelity element of the game, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of beautiful. It almost
And
has
also it's just higher. It is just also the sprites themselves are higher fidelity than you would actually see in Doom, but still not as much as you could do today if you felt like it.
I mean, it also almost had it was almost more like a Doom meets like a Minecraft aesthetic or Eldritch. I don't know if anybody played Eldritch. That was a really cool game. It has the same sort of chunky look to it, like a very blocky look that is almost, it's obviously modeled more after Doom, but it reminded me of that. Maybe the color design, maybe something about it just sort of.
Sure. Or what was that
stood out
game
to
I
me.
talked about several months ago? Delver.
Oh,
It
okay.
kind of reminds me of a little bit
Yeah.
of how that game looks. In that the sprite work is higher fidelity
Right.
than you'd see in Doom or something, but it's using the same basic
So
techniques.
what does
So
one
very
do
chunky.
besides shoot monsters and collect
That's all
keys?
you do. I mean,
okay.
it's
That's it.
straight up. It's a Doom. It's like a.
Oh, so it's like a Doom clone.
It's a Doom clone.
It's a total
it is a
Doom
clone.
clone.
Yeah, in the traditional usage of that phrase.
Not to just mean a
Not
first-person
to just
shooter
mean
game.
any
I played this
first-person
Doom
shooter,
clone BioShock on my
Right.
iPad.
Exactly. God, I was going to say something about this and I forget it now. Oh yeah, a thing that kind of annoyed me about this game. Sorry.
I was going to say something interesting. A thing that's annoying.
Well, it was interesting to play a game like this and react to it as like a game developer and somebody who's been playing games for a lifetime, barf, and like which is not how I reacted to Doom when I played it, right? Which was like, what is this? Like, when I played,
How did you react to Doom?
what is this? In 1993, whenever Doom, I think that's when Doom came out. Right
Yeah,
around there.
probably.
I think so.
Like the reaction I
What
had
is
to
this?
it was that. It was crazy. That was it. Whereas now I play it and I get really annoyed by how the weapons are tuned because like so the weapon you start with is kind of like a laser carbine thing where it can
Yes.
shoot it's the weakest weapon you have, but you can shoot very rapid fire, and because there's no vertical aiming, all of your there's a little bit of swim, like there's a little bit of spray, right? So they don't all converge to a point as you fire, but they effectively do. They basically all go to one point on the horizon, and then if they hit an enemy before that happens, they intersect with the enemy, right? So, and there's no reticle on the screen also, which means when you're using this gun, it's kind of the only gun in which you kind of have a reticle, because the stream of fire from this gun will converge on the point where your reticle would be, and so it allows you to aim very precisely. But then you pick up a shotgun, and the way the art is just doesn't...
But like Doom didn't have a reticle. Wolfenstein didn't have one, right?
No, but the shotgun in those games, this is what I'm talking about with tuning. Like, the shotgun in those games felt, at least to me, maybe I'm just suck at this game, but it felt like it had a much wider cone. And so in this game, I feel like when I'm using a shotgun, I'm using something with a spray that's in between like a handgun and what a shotgun would be in other games. And so it just feels kind of pointless.
That's just for pros, Chris.
For me to use. I guess it is just for pros. I don't know. This is a dumb, pointless, tiny thing to talk about, but for some reason it was like, it just dissuaded me from wanting to use the shotgun.
I mean, it's one of those things where if you are going to make a game that is deliberately attempting to play in the specific sphere of those games, comparisons are going to be that direct because those are the differences other than aesthetic
when all
choices.
you can do is run around and shoot, and one of the things you can shoot with is a shotgun, you're going to get compared to Doom, especially if you
if it's
Doom.
a like 2D gameplay on a 3D surface, sprite art, fast-paced, pixely first-person shooter that has a shotgun in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I found a thing that JP has pointed out about Doom that really like made me look at Doom, maybe not in quite the same way JP does, which is impossible. But like JP has made a lot of really fascinating observations about Doom. One of which is how much that game is about mobility and evasion, which is just not what modern first-person shooters are about. At least not like kind of first-person corridor crawls, right? They're about like slamming yourself into cover.
Right. The closest place that stuff lives at this point
shields.
is like fast multiplayer arena stuff.
Yeah, which is there's very little.
But and even then, it's different.
Yeah, I mean, well, there just aren't that many of those games really, because most of those games that exist, be they Counter-Strike or Call of Duty or something.
We should talk about that one in that trailer, though.
Yeah, I know. In those games, if you get headshotted, you're just dead, right? And those are like trace weapons. They're not like the thing that's interesting about Doom is that enemy fires a projectile at you, and it's
like the imp fireball.
Like the imp fireball, exactly. And you have time to like dance around it. Like it makes that game feel totally different from how modern first-person shooters do. It's not, and you can get away with that because the fidelity's low enough that it doesn't come off as ridiculous, right? Like that might look really silly it would definitely look silly in Call of Duty because that game is not set in like hell on Mars. But like, but in a game of Call of Duty level fidelity, it would set in a fantastic world. It would still feel a little weird probably, but in Doom it totally works, and it's like a really fascinating, great part of the dynamic of that game. And that's another thing about this game, Xibalba?
Xibalba.
Yeah, that feels like it just isn't quite just enemy design and like enemy projectile design, like how much like the variance of it and like all those values feel like they could be better. I don't know why I'm complaining about this. It's free and it's really cool. And I would still say if you have
it's an excuse to talk about Doom, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
if you have any fondness for that era of games, which I don't even really, I guess, compared to someone like JP, but if you have any connection to it at all, this is still a fun thing to load up for free in your web browser and play.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly had a lot of fun with it. Again,
totally.
not even really being not anywhere near skilled. I'm not even like a really skilled player with modern FPSs. So this was just honestly fun to have a little nostalgia trip for when I was like 9 and playing something, on Super Nintendo or something, some shitty, terrible. Super Nintendo
did get a Doom port. It got a Doom port,
yeah. And I think I rented it from Blockbuster Video.
Good frame rate on that too, I bet.
Good stuff. So, yes, it's worth your time.
Totally. Can you spell it again for people?
Yeah, it's Xibalba, I believe.
God, Xibalba. That is a shitty.
It's close. Yeah.
Xibalba.
Because, like
the Trade Federation.
Exactly.
Star Wars names are either something just like Xibalba or they are Cool Gaio. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
it's true.
Like,
Darth Terrible.
Yeah.
God, the Hutt names are the worst though. Like not just Jabba, but there's like
what are the other ones?
There's
called?
like Dingus the Hutt or something ridiculous. It's something really
I don't
terrible.
Even know why I even act surprised.
Yeah, it's something awful. It's not actually
Jackass
Dingus,
the
but
Hutt.
it's like the
Shithead the Hutt.
Yeah, basically. Yep. It's really subtle.
Darth Sidious.
It got a lot of subtlety there.
Star Wars.
Qui-Gon Jinn though, where'd that one come from?
I mean, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Like,
yeah, it's just
there's
syllables.
That one template, and suddenly everyone who has the same job, all their names came from the same JavaScript name generator. Like, what kind of universe is this?
They got a small child to try to pronounce names of countries or something, and that's what it was, basically.
That's probably true.
All right, little Sammy, what's that
There's
one?
probably something
Xibalba!
that silly that George Lucas relied on.
Yeah.
I mean, probably. Let's be honest.
It's a scientific method, It's really quite special.
You guys want to take a break?
Sure.
Look forlorn.
Yeah, we can take a break. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that one game and that marketing inside of that other conversation because it seemed like it belonged there, but
what?
Do
that modern first person shooter that was not free to play and all that stuff, we could talk about that when we come back. That trailer that
the Toxikk.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It just it
we might as well just mention it real quick.
Do it.
I don't know the team I don't know the name of the developer of this, but
Toxikk Team. It's not Toxikk Team.
there's a multiplayer first person arena shooter coming out called Toxikk, which is horribly spelled.
Isn't it like Toxikk or something like that?
I think it's Toxikk.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm
it's
looking
pretty
it up.
bad.
My phone suggests toxin.
That would have been better, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, it is the trailer is like 100% aimed at people who came up with Quake 3 Arena, Unreal Tournament.
Maybe some tribes east sort of stuff.
Tribes maybe, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It has double jumping, like
Toxikk.
rocket jumping. They have mutators, which is an Unreal Tournament thing. They go out of their way to say like no recharging shields.
Yeah, they put out a trailer for it, and it was a trailer that knows its audience aggressively well, and it revealed to me that audience is probably no longer me. But the trailer,
it's more than not you at all, though. Right? Like
it's a little me.
You're not 100% outside of that.
There's a little me in
that.
Okay, there's a little bit of me. There's a fair amount of me that would enjoy this game, but the way that the trailer was presented,
the trailer was
pushed me off it a little bit. But
pretty,
at the same time, I have to have some respect for that trailer because they put out a trailer that was just footage of people moving around at incredibly high speeds, like high field of view cameras showing just people wrecking each other with all sorts of weapons, the same way that it looks like when you watch a playback of a Quake 3 or an Unreal demo. Right. And then the title cards come up and they just say like no cover system,
no leveling,
no health regen. And then like they list all these things that it has like mutators, blah, blah, blah. No. It's all these things that it doesn't have. And then like 2/3 of the way through the trailer, like time dilation happens and the word free to play comes up just huge and full screen. And then right when you're like, oh, fuck, no slams in over the top. Like, okay, fine. Like I went from being annoyed at the trailer to being to forgiving my annoyance at it and still being passively annoyed.
Right. Yeah,
but like it went to the like I went from the guy who's annoyed to like the coach sitting at the sidelines just sort of giving like, yeah, you're all right, nod to someone or something. Like just like
so good.
But except then and it was called Toxikk with
I know. And the developer is called Reactor with 2 Ks.
Yeah, it's like whatever.
The first line on their website is frag like it's 1999.
I know, like that's what I mean. Like they're like
they're just going all in,
septupling down on
which
this.
Is kind of great,
but
I mean it's fine.
You know, if you're gonna do this sort of thing, you might as well do it.
It at least looks like someone is like they're. Who knows what this game is? It playable yet? I don't actually know anything about it other than this trailer because I didn't pay any attention to it. I
don't know. I think they just announced it.
Like, it's a game that can easily suck just by virtue of it being a competitive.
Oh, it's going into closed beta this year.
Arena first person thing. But it's nice to see someone just saying if this is what you like, this is what exists. But at the same time, I'm saying that while Epic is doing a new Unreal Tournament from scratch, so like. I don't think that Unreal Tournament versus Toxikk is going to have the same level of headbutting cultural claim as Quake 3 versus UT.
Yeah. I never know what to make of companies like when Epic made Unreal Tournament 3. This goes to the same maybe it's just people haven't found a way to do it that clicks for me, but it's very similar to imagining the like imp fireball in a modern kind of sci-fi first-person shooter with modern fidelity.
This is why Team Fortress 2 captured me for as long as it did.
Exactly. Whereas when Epic made Unreal Tournament 3 and it looked like Gears of War or something, even though it's way faster than Gears of War, it didn't...
Have you seen the art tests for Unreal Tournament new one?
It's gorgeous.
It's really interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They apparently there were like GDC talks about this from their lead like level artist, but they did one of their streams, which was the one that everyone noticed because it had a ton of beautiful art in it. Yeah. Was them talking about their sort of philosophy of visual contrast and really stark simplicity in their design. So the levels, like the level, it wasn't an actual environment. It was just an art test that they showed. And it was like. It was geometrically detailed as fuck. Like it was greebly as all hell, basically. Right. Like it was just pipes and panels and hoses and stuff. But it looked like it looked like it all was like in a really old area of a sci-fi prison, but has been now under government management for like 80 years, and it just has been painted with the same white paintbrush like 500 times. So the entire level. Actually also kind of has that like Mirror's Edge.
Oh wow.
There's a gleam to
it has that except really cool. Like so it's all painted that like clean white, but then if you look at the details there's still little bits of rust and little bits of detail, and then they just have brightly colored stripes along the walls, and they paint surfaces for contrast so that you can see when like when like the boundaries of a room and like the big stripe along the walls lets you really cleanly see the shape of the space that you're in, but it still has the really heavy details and materials and atmospherics of a new Unreal Engine. How that pairs with like player movement and people jumping and rocket jumping and all that stuff, I don't really know, but like I looked at that and was like, okay, that's actually like you're not giving up any of the epic engine demo high fidelity stuff.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's very thoughtful for what the function of the art
That's
is
cool.
inside of the game.
Really
Like that's
good.
it was really interesting.
I want to look this up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I actually cut that piece of the video out and made a bunch of little videos of it if you're interested.
cool.
Yeah, I mean it's actually a really good demo. Also, if you're a total layperson to this, you know, it's very interesting to hear sort of the art director is actually giving a walkthrough of it, and it's about 9 minutes long, and it's I don't know, I think it's very interesting. So
Cool.
Yeah, it's and I mean the thing about it that is both cool and less cool is all the content in this new Unreal is like it's made by Epic in partnership with stuff that the community makes. So
Right,
in that video,
yeah.
they're like, "This is a thing that we're considering as a template style for the game." So we know a lot of you out there are trying to figure out what visual style to hit. Here's some of the stuff we're thinking about. Maybe this is what you should do. So I don't know how consistent that's going to be across
Sure.
the actual game.
yeah,
But like, I bet that there are people now who watch that video and are in their homes reverse engineering that for the things that they're going to submit to try and make content for this game. It was, I don't know, it was
pretty cool.
interesting.
Yeah,
But
it's good stuff.
yeah, it's so like the aesthetics of Doom and scaling those up and having the mechanics and the aesthetics both scale up seems nearly impossible.
Yeah, I know. It really does.
Unless you're underwater.
Well, unless you're underwater. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just in terms of the speed of the fireball or the speed of a projectile or something like that. I feel like that's the only
Oh, I see.
The thing
way
about
of
it is
doing
like
that.
Except you have to go really fast.
Doom felt incredibly real in the early 90s, but if you look at it now, it is a wacky, crazy fucking stylized place that is
Yeah.
nuts. And no one who tries to make things like Doom now tries to make things using that same insane, high contrast, super weirdly like
Yeah.
stretched, melty, just fucking weird stuff. Like if you actually looked at the specifics, like I suspect some of that was just we want it to look real, so we make everything really textured and like really high
Sure.
contrast and weird. But you could probably look at all the stuff in Doom
It would
and
be hard-
strip the intent out of it and just look at the execution and make
Right.
a high fidelity thing
I think
that
it
is
would be-
not real.
Yeah, I think it would still be a really difficult challenge, though, because you have to fill those pixels with something, and choosing to fill them with nothing is still a very big choice.
Right.
Right? Like, you have to do something with all the extra, like, visual information that can fit in your textures and in your geometry and just
Right,
on your
and
screen space.
For all of the weirdness in Doom style in all directions, if you get into that game enough and you get to a part where the lights turn off and one thing is flickering in the corner, that's still, for me,
Yeah.
as effective as it has
Absolutely.
as it has been always, and as it is in
Absolutely.
every game where a stupid flickering light in the corner scares you.
It's true.
But like
Mhm.
having like I don't know, Doom,
Yeah.
Yeah. Xibalba.
Xibalba. Toxikk.
Toxic
X's
Xibalba.
in games with guns.
Early 90s.
and
Today.
today
Take a break.
you're listening to Toxikk FM, the early '90s and today.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Video games.
A world of thanks to our sponsor, World of Tanks, for this episode.
World of Tanks is a 16-on-16 free-to-play online multiplayer game in which you control tanks. A world of them. There are tanks from 7 different countries. This is the thing I learned. The Soviet Union, Germany, Britain, France, China, Japan, and the United States.
You learned that from the World of Tanks document.
No, I learned that from Wikipedia.
Oh. You control these tanks?
You control them, you shoot them at each other, and if you go to playtanks.us and use the offer code thumbs in all capitals,
Capital T, capital H,
Shut up.
capital U, capital M, capital B, capital S.
thanks, Jake.
Capital Thumbs is
Yes.
hopefully the name of the character that you play in World of Tanks.
Yes. Anyway, you will get some exclusive deals. So, playtanks.us, offer code thumbs in all caps, access to hundreds of tanks, authentic tanks.
Hundreds of thanks.
Thanks for the memories.
That's just your deal. Video games.
Must place big hunk ball on table. Must eat big hunk.
Cool.
I got this big piece of big hunk in my mouth. I'm sorry.
Big piece of big hunk, that chunk.
There's a big chunk of hunk in my face. This is... I was avoiding this one because it was so huge and gross, but I should have gotten it out of the way earlier.
Huge hunk.
Got this huge hunk.
Huge, gross hunk.
Gross hunk.
What a disgusting hunk.
You know, is that like a stuffed animal of a dog?
It is.
Up
That
there.
is Jay Allard.
That is Jowls
CFO.
Allard. He's the Out of Thumb CFO.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
He existed before the painting. He's the original Jay.
He's the first. Yeah. Jay Allard the first.
Jay Allard the second.
Yeah.
Put that on a little plaque underneath.
Yeah.
Man, we should just commission a portrait from Blambo of that Jay Allard of the dog and put that there and have
Oh,
it say Jay
man.
Allard 1 and then Jay Allard 2.
Oh, man. Yeah, we should. That's a good idea.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Okay.
And you wouldn't have to put that noise back.
Right, because then we could buy a third one of that exact shitty frame and put Jowls Allard up.
Jowls Allard.
That's what the J stands for on that guy. Look at him.
Oh, that's so good.
Yep.
I never knew about Jowls Allard.
And then we also need another painting of Salacious Crumb, which we call Bobby Kotick 1.
Video games.
Back to the
Real
podcast.
Man, so over the break, I was watching some of that Unreal Tournament 4, or whatever they're calling it.
Unreal Tournament 2014. It's just called
I
Unreal
think they're
Tournament.
calling it 2014.
It's called
yeah.
the Unreal Tournament. That's what you want so much right now.
I really want that desperately.
You want that to be just a really nice, sort of tasteful font.
What, just like
The Unreal Tournament.
international style?
Yeah.
Fancy, yeah.
The Unreal Tournament.
Enter the Unreal Tournament.
The International Unreal Tournament.
God, now I'm just thinking
Enter
of a
unrealtournament.international.
Now, when you say enter the Unreal Tournament, I'm just thinking of a terrible, like, Tim Burton
Oh, God.
fucking Alice in Wonderland treatment.
Oh.
Mustachioed, top-hatted man.
Oh, so Enter the Unreal Tournament is like Enter the Enchanted Forest?
Right, yeah.
Like of peril or whatever. No, because
Right.
the phrase Enter the Unreal Tournament to me...
Like a carnival. There's like a fucking carnival cart. Probably
no, it
involved.
Figment and Dreamfinder in there.
It just
Totally.
brings up to me the lore of Quake 3 Arena and Mortal Kombat, where Enter the Unreal Tournament is when a fucking chrome guy on a throne summons the warriors from a bunch of generic non-existent IPs to kill each other.
Right, that's
to, like, to turn each other into fucking jib piles.
yeah, yeah.
Or for those who pronounce GIF as GIF, gib piles.
Gib by.
Piles of Gib.
Yeah.
Warrior Gib.
So sorry, I actually did watch some of that like visual development stuff for real, and it looks
for real?
fucking cool.
Get it? It's really good.
Fuck you forever. It looks really really cool. Your Mirror's Edge comparison was not far off, except it's as though Mirror's Edge everything had like 40 times as many vertices everywhere. Right.
It also
just,
feels though
shit
it feels
coming out of the
like
walls and stuff.
Mirror's
Looks so really
Edge
clean.
after like the city was evacuated after like the Chernobyl disaster.
But it's not. But it's not that it's like ruined or shitty.
No,
it's
it just
that
looks like it has not been as maintained as cleanly. Like the paint isn't as fresh as it is in Mirror's
Okay,
Edge.
yeah. But also just geometrically, there's just way more
Yeah, it's just bulky.
shit everywhere. Yeah. But not in a way, I shouldn't use the word shit because that implies grime and all this stuff that comes along with those games
No,
traditionally, but it's not
it looks like a more industrial version of like the exterior of Star Wars spaceships, but
Yeah.
someone then spray painted it all matte white.
Yeah, you almost you compared it to the original film Alien,
Yeah.
which I think is a totally good comparison. That bright white, industrial space look. It looks really cool.
I
lived in, but it's not
non-sarcastically
gross.
used the word greebly earlier, so I apologize to everyone for talking about greebles.
That's fine.
Greebles. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that stuff is. It's good that you guys were aware of that because I had I had just obviously been talking about Unreal Tournament 3 and how it felt like just the obvious extension of other modern first-person shooters into this context in which that doesn't really fit quite as well. And you're like the exact thing that I would have want someone to have done is exactly what they did, which is just not take any of those assumptions and say, given all this fidelity, what do we do with it? Without breaking the point of how you're supposed to parse these games visually. That's really cool.
Yeah. They're actually trying to communicate stuff really overtly in the design instead of
And
being
even
like you're in a steel forge, but also it's just a video game level.
right,
Like,
and there's
no.
a lava pit. Like,
I mean, this game will probably surely still have lava pits and a fucking steel forge and chains.
The guy pointed out that this was only one environment, and other environments might look different.
Yeah.
I hope they stick to this basic premise, right? Because Quake 3, as I recall, the multiplayer. No, I guess there were some pretty grody.
Yeah, Quake 3 had some wacky stuff.
3, yeah.
But most of like the main maps were generally a lot of like flat, reasonably monochromatic stone. But then it just because
Unreal Tournament, really.
Yeah. Unreal Tournament was, I guess, a little more sci-fi, and Quake was a little bit more of the weird sort of like.
But there were
gore stone.
Yeah, but there were Quake 3 levels that were totally.
It's because Quake 3 had all those curved surfaces stuff. So their whole thing was like big, clean, huge, like faceted stone that then just had like a wacky esophagus like coming out of it.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the art director at some point.
Esophagus and Sarcophagus.
Yeah.
Are
one of the few games in which both of those things can be present.
That's now also the name of a fucking garbage
death metal band or something?
No. Morbid antique store on Valencia Street.
Oh,
Esophagus and Sarcophagus Christmas. Hover.com.
Merry Christmas. The art director, his name is Chris Perna, I think. He sort of goes on to talk about just really, really broad strokes generally what the aesthetic feel is. And he makes the comparison. He's like, oh, I know I'm making this comparison, but here it is. From sort of the earlier Unreals feeling a little bit more like the Tim Burton Batman, like a little bit more exaggerated, a little bit more cartoonish. And then trying to go for a more mature, Chris Nolan Batman look for this. Still exaggerated, still sci-fi, but not, quite as cartoonish.
I guess that only reads to me in like the
like really
loosest,
high level.
most high level analogy because it doesn't look anything.
Because it doesn't look like Christopher Nolan Batman.
Oh yeah, I think he was just using that as a metaphor. In terms
game
of like,
developers are
here we
only
go.
capable of using that as a metaphor.
Yeah,
that's
true.
there's a lot of
this kind of like aliens.
There's a lot of things you could use to create that metaphor without.
But I feel like he actually said less aliens, more alien in that video as well.
He did.
Though.
He does.
Right.
So.
Which is more accurate. Although now that's also
another game
that's the
developer,
go-to of the 2010s, I guess, because Alien Isolation is also all about less aliens, more alien.
Yeah.
It's really true.
I would way rather I feel like a lot of people, including this podcast, were like begging for less aliens, more alien for a long time anyway. So like, fine, good. Please give me more alien.
If you're gonna, sure. Yes, do that. It's fine with me.
If an alien is going to be involved,
do it this way.
Keep that ass out of here.
Only one of them. Yeah.
And make it good. Yeah.
Whoa.
Shots fired.
True.
Okay.
Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Video games.
Oh, I played Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Ooh, I want to hear about this.
This game is really cool. It's really, really cool.
I don't know anything about that game, but that name kept making me think that it was a Penny Arcade related thing because that name sounds like the name.
It is definitely not.
I know, just the name
like a
Crypt,
like precipice.
Crypt of the Necrodancer sounds like one of their trade paperback collections or something.
Yeah, no, it totally does. As far as I'm aware, it does absolutely.
I'm sure. I know that it doesn't. I looked and found that it didn't, but that was why I wasn't paying attention to it.
Right. So I didn't know. I knew this game existed, and I knew that Danny Baranowski was doing the score for it. And I knew literally nothing else about it until I got it on Steam, installed it, and played it. Because anything that broadcasts its intention to make music, I mean, I didn't know how this game made use of music, but I assumed that it did because of its name and the fact that the involvement of its composer was more noted than it usually is in like most games. So I'll give any game a shot on that basis. Doesn't mean I'll like it, but I'll give it a shot. And so I downloaded this game, I installed it, and it's really cool. It a lot of people have compared it to Spelunky, but I don't really. I understand why. Like, it's a 2D game with randomly generated levels, and it's like you're going deeper and deeper underground in this, like, again, randomly generated kind of adventurous environment. But it feels more to me like something Binding of Isaac or Nuclear Throne or something like that. I feel like. Oh, sorry. Actually, before I get into these subtleties, I'm going to talk about what the actual game is. I'm sorry. So the thing about this game that is unique and why it's called the Crypt of the Necrodancer is because the entire game is quantized to the tempo of the music. So the entire game ticks,
is there an actual constant beat, though?
Yes, there's a constant beat, and the whole game ticks along to the rhythm of the music. So everything happens once per beat. Enemies move once per beat. Enemies attack once per beat.
Does your guy move once a beat as well?
Your lady moves once per beat, or you can.
So is it actually gridded out the way that you move then?
Yes, it's a grid.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a top-down 2D grid. And
you could also choose to not move by not pressing a button, I imagine.
You can, but you'll lose your combo. So the way this works, yeah, it's cool. It's actually really cool. Yeah. So the way this works is there's a constant beat, and it's like represented orally by just hearing it, obviously, but then also visually with like a pulsing heart on the bottom of your screen and like beat markers that converge on the heart to just make it even more obvious when the beat is coming. And you can do one thing per beat, and that thing can include moving or attacking or dropping a bomb if you have found bombs, or casting a spell if you have found a spell. Yeah. But every single one of those actions is executed just using the 4 arrow keys. Those are the only inputs you have in the game, which I thought was kind of weird and annoying at first, but it actually makes perfect sense.
Does that mean you can play it on a DDR mat?
Yeah, you totally could. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
I imagine that's the purpose of that.
People do it.
Well, I don't think it's the specific purpose, but I'm sure they had that in mind as a possibility. But the actual reason is because it allows you to just keep one hand constantly on the beat. You don't have to switch the
right, your right hand
between your right hand and your left hand. Yeah, your right hand, just every single beat you're putting a command in. And once you kill enemies while adhering to the beat, you rack up a coin multiplier, which affects how much money you get from enemies you kill. You can get up to a 3x multiplier for killing several enemies in a row on the beat. And as soon as you either get damaged by an enemy or miss a beat, like for any reason,
right,
you lose your multiplier. So you don't have to stick to the beat to complete the game, theoretically, but like it's
the longer
very
the chain that you build up. Yeah.
It is both like visually and orally satisfying to keep that combo, because when your combo's active, the floor tiles pulse in like an alternating disco floor pattern, which just, this sounds weird, but this all works really well, I think.
Yeah.
And you also get that multiplier, so it helps in a gameplay sense as well.
Does the music mix up as you build up as well? Like what happens?
No, but the music isn't responding to what you do in the game, as far as I can tell, but the game responds to the music in some ways. So, for example, my favorite example is the first time I encountered a shopkeeper in the game. Like a lot of these games, there's just randomly placed shopkeepers, and during certain parts of the track, not the entire track, which I think is a really good choice, but just during certain parts of the track, the shopkeeper sings along with like a synthesized, like when you have like an old Casio keyboard and it has like the voice patch, and
like yeah,
and it's all synth stuff. The shopkeeper sings along.
What does it sound like? No, it's
sings along to that. And the first time that I heard that, I busted up laughing. It was so fucking funny because the music is basically, it's like chiptune dance music. So, right. So it's like chiptune stuff, which obviously fits well with the aesthetic, right? It's a kind of SNES styled 2D game, top-down game. But then the way the music rises and falls is like a dance track. And just hearing this like goofy faux singing melody line just come in on the top because of both where you are on the track and because you're close enough to the shopkeeper.
Right, that you can hear him.
Because it starts out like faint when if you're not close to him. And as you get closer, it gets loud. And then as you open the door to the place, like it just busts out because now it's like not a clue.
Oh, anymore. Good.
Yeah,
man.
It's really, really good. It's just that stuff is
little
wonderful.
Lips sort of like move. It's so
like
that you can kind of tell, or does he bobble a little bit?
I think so. I can't quite remember, but I think so. I think they sell it well.
Yeah,
so you said the controls are just on the arrow keys. Does that mean that to do things like moving is literally you press up, down, left, right, and then other ones are combo presses or something?
So attack is also just direction. So
Oh, so if you move into an enemy, you
attack them. Yeah, but you have to. The thing that makes it challenging is you have to weigh that against the enemy's patterns, right? Because the enemies also do everything once per thing. So some enemies just go up and down one tile back and forth forever. Some go in a circle. Some like wait every other beat, then attack. And so you need to be careful.
So it has some of like. I don't play a lot of turn-based games. The most recent thing that I played that was even remotely like that style of thing was Hitman Go, which is stupid because it's nothing like that, but just...
Right, so that game feels turn-based. This game feels real-time because you're pushed along by the beat.
Oh, because also the enemies will move if you don't move.
Yeah, they will move on the beat. So this game is kind of like a more traditional roguelike where the whole world is all operating on a shared timescale. Mm-hmm. You know, like where as you move, they'll move because by moving, you're ticking the world along.
Right.
So it kind of feels like an old school roguelike in that way, except that there's this constant beat that gives it a character that those games don't have. There's actually a mode in this game. There's an alternate character you can play called the Bard, which just turns off the beat requirement, and you can just move as fast as you want, and every single time you move or do anything, the enemies do. So it works.
That is like closer to Hitman Go, then.
Yeah.
Yes, or one of these old,
or like
roguelikes.
An old rogue.
And I actually think it was a real bad move to put that in the game because when I play it, I just imagine people playing it that way and just optimizing for that style of play. When it just feels totally different, and I feel like they should have just fully doubled down on the thing that makes their game cool and tuned everything around that. Maybe they probably still did. They probably still did tune everything around this sense of like mental energy that you need to keep up with the beat. But I was kind of bummed when I played the Bard thing because as a video game player, it's so easy to always go for the path of least resistance. And that mode definitely is, right? Like when I play that, I'm like, oh, this is so much less stressful. Also, when there's nothing going on, I can just go way faster. Whereas in the normal game, I can't go faster than the beat or I'll fuck up. And it just makes it less special. You know, like it's easier to play. So my brain wants me to do it that way because it's like, you don't have to worry about all this shit. But the resulting experience is less satisfying in retrospect. And I feel like that's always a really dangerous design space to be in if you're making a game, because you don't want to give your players a seductive option that will make the game less meaningful. You know, like, because people will just do that. Or some people will anyway.
Yeah.
I think there are things they could do to allow for more player preference. Like what they could do, I don't know, they could try something. Maybe they did try this and it didn't work well, but they could try something like just general plus 10% or plus minus % tempo modifier for people who just want to speed things up or for people who can't keep up. Because the whole game is working via MIDI. It's not, the tracks are not pre-recorded. So there are like buttons you can hit on the floor that for like 4 seconds at a time will ramp the tempo way up or ramp the tempo way down. And that stuff is really cool because it just makes the whole thing feel all together, you know, just makes everything feel of a piece. It's cool. This game is in, I think, alpha right now. And it doesn't, one of the other reasons it doesn't closely remind me of Spelunky the way it does for some people is that to me, it just doesn't feel as like perfect as Spelunky. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but like everything about the way Spelunky is tuned to me feels so, it's like lightning in a bottle almost. The other thing that's very different, this is another thing actually, speaking of JP pointing things out, like I remember having a conversation with JP last year about just randomly generated games broadly. And we were talking about, maybe I've talked about this on the podcast, I can't remember. We were talking about the difference between 2D games that are side-scrolling and 2D games that are top-down. And I think there's something about being side-scrolling that just allows systems to interact in a way that they can't when they're top-down because gravity exists.
Gravity just being there all the time means that there's just
Yeah.
a constant force present always.
Yeah, exactly. But it also means the game has to be real-time for that to mean anything.
Yep.
Right? Like turn-based games where gravity is important are usually not as impactful as real-time games where gravity is important. Although I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions to that. There always are, right? So in this game, because it doesn't have that way of just objects kind of physically interacting, like you don't get, at least I have not, after several hours of play in Necrodancer, I have not gotten that sense of like emergence. You know what I mean? New results don't occur because of like chain reactions I set off or because of things bumping into each other and like creating.
That's doubly hard by everything being quantized and stuff.
Yeah, totally. This is not a criticism. It's just I've seen so many people compare this game to Spelunky, and like it's a different thing for me. And I'm not saying a worse thing. It's just it's just for me scratches a totally different itch. This is more like getting into this very predictable groove, whereas Spelunky's like getting into a groove and then your groove jumps the tracks onto a totally different groove, and it's suddenly your brain is exploding. This game is more like like listening to the music and sort of communing with the music through the game, sort of, but with these like punctuated moments of stress, because there's a really specific feeling you get playing this game, knowing that you have to make possibly a fairly complex decision about where to move, because there's 3 different kinds of enemies all within a couple squares of you. They all have different move behaviors, and so and they're going to move when you move. So it's like, fuck, if I move up, is that skeleton going to jump into me? But if I move to the left, then is like this dragon's fire, is it right about to pop? Is it going to like area of effect me into that fucking square? Like, you have to process all these things, but you don't have any, you only have a fraction of a second to process them, because the music's going to happen
and you have to move.
Yeah, so it has a very specific kind of pressure and like mental exercise that it demands. I don't know, it's cool. I really like this game. It's one of those games where I can play it it's permadeath, basically. You die and you start over. Like a lot of these.
Does it have a daily challenge?
It does, which
nice.
It's cool. I'm really glad it does. I'm not like deep into this game enough that the daily challenge has like grabbed me.
But that was another thing that JP said that I think is actually totally true, which is if you're making a game like this that has procedural content and permadeath and is replay focused, take the time to put a daily challenge in, because
why not?
Yeah,
it's not free, but it's a lot closer to free than most game modes are.
Yeah,
because it feels more substantial than it is, right? Like, it's just.
If you can come up with a way to have a reliable seed that everyone gets every day, you should probably do it just in case a bunch of people start streaming your game.
Like, for sure. Might as well do it, yeah. So I like this a lot. There's a part of it that I don't know how I feel about yet, which is that the main game mode, you collect just diamonds as just one of the things you can find in the game, and you can use those to buy permanent upgrades, like things that increase your health hearts, or do other helpful things. And I don't
even after permadeath, or is this?
Yes, that just becomes part of your. There's other upgrades you can buy that only last for the next playthrough.
Sure.
Which I'm also not really crazy about, but the permanent ones, I don't know how I feel about it, because there's also a hardcore mode, which to me feels like just the normal mode, where every time you start the game, you just start with 2 health, because that's what your character has, and you don't start with anything special, and you just play until you die. But this game, because of the sort of tempo quantized quality of this game, it does feel just kind of harder than most games. And so maybe they found that some people just frustration just became enough of a thing that they wanted to provide a sense that you... And I know Steve would like that, probably. I think Steve really dislikes games with no permanence or kind of progression in that
Wasn't this something we talked about this a little bit when Rogue Legacy came out? Because that game...
Yeah, but that game, that felt to me more integrated into the core design of the game.
That's fair, because
the genetic thing.
Yeah.
Passing down your traits.
I know some people still weren't crazy about it, but that to me just felt like an entire game built around that concept. Whereas in this game, it feels like a start over each time randomly generated game that has some stuff you get to keep also in it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it doesn't.
That's fair.
It's less fundamental to the actual.
It also.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I don't know.
Right? I would never play Spelunky at the level that you would play it.
So, yeah.
But like the only thing that I ever thought when I was playing Spelunky was maybe I'll finally get good enough that I can pay that guy to dig a fucking hole so I can jump farther ahead in the game. Whereas if you're a real Spelunky player, that is not relevant except for practice for the real game.
Right.
But like, I guess the way that it's integrated in Spelunky also you'd consider more harmonious than this.
Yeah, I do. That feels totally different to me. Like the skipping things in Spelunky is like, I totally understand. That's a utility thing, right? That's like,
yeah,
I've gotten to ice caves only twice ever. I don't want to die next time I spend 20 minutes getting to ice caves, so I want to practice ice caves. right? So I can get better at it.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, that's not a great tool to actually beat the game because you're not going to have...
You're not going to have all the stuff you
yeah,
need.
right? Like,
that's
that's not a philosophical thing on my part. That's just like, realistically, it's not...
Yeah,
well,
that's true.
Daily Challenge also, you can't use them, and that's ended up being all I played. I don't know. I don't have like strong feelings about this, right? It was just... When I get those upgrades, it just feels like not what the real game is to me, but that's just bullshit, right? Like, that's just my preconception. It's not necessarily real. So, or universal anyway. I mean, it's real because it's how I feel, but I don't necessarily expect everyone to feel that way. Anyway, whatever. All that said, it feels like they have I guess what I mean to say is with like the multiple characters and the buying stuff, but there's also a hardcore mode, like all this, and there's way more doors of other modes, I guess, that I haven't unlocked yet. And there's also like other characters you unlock that will sell you things in between games. Like it feels like there's more accoutrement in this game than it feels like I would expect. But like also, what are my expectations? Whatever. It's just made up shit for my brain. So I don't know. That's just my reaction. But the actual core game that they made, the actual loop of playing this game, I think is really, really cool. And it's also not done yet. So whatever. None of these opinions necessarily will carry through,
So you didn't visit the crypt of the Necrodancer?
I did. If that's a real place you get, which I assume it is, no, I did not reach it. Yeah.
I'd really like to play this. This sounds really, cool. Really fun. Yeah.
And it feels like they're relatively forgiving on the beat matching side. Like with the first time you load the game up, you have to do a minute of visual calibration and a minute of audio calibration as you like just hitting the up arrow.
Are they just testing your sense of rhythm?
No, they're testing the latency of your system.
Okay.
Because I
thought it was actually like a competency test.
No.
Nice.
Sorry, I started talking about that, then I veered off as I was remembering this, and that was my bad. I played the game. I first played it on my desktop Windows machine, and then I played it on my Mac laptop, and the game is on both natively and Linux as well, I think. So that's nice. But I noticed that the values were totally different. Like the video latency was way higher on my Mac laptop than it was on my PC. So that was like seeing that there actually was a distinction made me glad that they put that in there. And I'm sure they found in testing that it was necessary. But anyway, the thing I was going to say originally was that it feels like they're pretty forgiving with the beat, right? Like if you're basically, it feels like plus or minus like 25% on either end of where the beat falls, they'll give it to you. So it feels, it feels, it doesn't feel like you have to be like a musician to play this game. Because
what if you move outside of the beat? Is there any penalty for it, or is there just nothing happens?
Yeah, you lose your multiplier. You lose your.
Okay, so if you actually go way off tempo, it's the equivalent of doing nothing for a beat.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because going off tempo means you're not hitting it on.
Sure, I didn't know if it was like it was if you could hit any time before it, and it was like you're effectively programming the move for when the beat hits. But it is actually like you have.
It's pretty forgiving. Like you can go pretty far ahead.
But you can also just.
But you can.
If you hit it on like literally the offbeat, you will be fucked.
Yeah, you could. Okay. Right. Correct. But I mean, I'm sure because the thing is, you get all the benefit of being someone with a strong sense of rhythm by just doing it well yourself and it feeling right, and you don't lose anything by them allowing you to be mushier, right? Like they made the correct choice by not making it really rigorous, because people who can keep a beat really well, it'll still feel cool, and people who can't are not just going to...
They're not going to be like, oh,
it's not just going to be a pointlessly frustrating experience.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like that was the right move. Yeah. Anyway.
Do you want to read
I went on
things
a long time. I'm sorry.
Sent?
Yeah, let's find some reader now.
Chris just had a lot to say about that crypt.
That's right.
I know. I'm sorry.
Jesus. I started another game, but I'll talk about it next time.
Okay.
What is it?
Sunless Sea.
I don't even know what that is.
It's pretty cool.
Next week
I'll tell you all about it.
Okay, let's see here.
I was very excited.
Casper Nickel.
You were very excited? Are you sad that you can't talk about it?
Oh, no. I'm just excited for next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So Casper writes, Dear Thumbs, I enjoyed the conversation about about reader/internet assumptions regarding conspiratorial relationships between game developers and reviewers, but I thought you were a bit dismissive of the suspicions of consumers. It's not only childish outrage and self-centered me-first thinking that prompts such responses. Documented and extensive collusion between companies and parallel sectors, between politicians and corporations, and between news and media outlets and the power brokers they ostensibly cover is well known in many parts of the world, including the U.S., a phenomenon some refer to as the politico-media complex. We share a history of terribly problematic media reports on the nuclear industry, on U.S. tobacco companies, on the low-fat food craze and every other diet fad, on NCAA corruption, to name just a few examples from popular media of the past few decades. The culture of conspiracy and fear in which we live is irrational and unscientific at many levels, but also does have a specific history and a political context that should be taken seriously. P.S. So glad Danielle joined the podcast, and thanks for all your great work together and as individuals. Best, Casper.
Thank you for the shout out. I do actually think there's merit to talk about these things. Obviously, like, there's no such thing as a perfect system.
Actually, I'm sorry. Before I respond, I'm just going to read another one because we got basically a similar email coming from a different angle. Man Your Post writes, "Hi Thumbians, longtime listener here. I was interested in your discussion about ethics in gaming journalism from the last episode. While I somewhat agree with you guys and girl, there is a related issue that's been bothering me, and I'd like to pick your brains about it." So, he gives some background here that we kind of already covered. So let me just get to the actual meat. So, whenever industry people talk about this subject, whether they be journalists or developers, they swear black and blue they've never heard or witnessed a scenario like this happening, but they all, including you guys, fail to mention the Jeff Gerstmann / GameSpot controversy.
That was the first thing that I was going to talk about.
Okay. So
regards to Casper's email. No, go ahead.
A quick recap. Gerstmann was fired from GameSpot some years back. Rumors circulated he was fired due to publisher IDOS's pressure after giving a big AAA game, Kane and Lynch Dead Men, a less than glowing review. The game's publisher was heavily advertising the game on GameSpot at the time. After the fact, Gerstmann himself suggested the rumor to be true. Here's a link to his Wikipedia page. It's in the careers section. I find it hard to believe someone as well respected and known as Jeff Gerstmann, a guy who runs one of the most popular gaming websites on the planet, is passed over when it comes to these discussions, even though it's a key piece of evidence proving shonky deals do exist between publications and developers. Why do you think that is? So he's saying he's not suggesting it's rife throughout the industry, just that it has occurred. Anyway, love from Adelaide, Australia, Tony Regari. P.S. Please thank Danielle for joining the Idle Thumbs podcast. She's a wonderful addition to the show who knows her shit when it comes to gaming. Yes. Sorry, Jake, you were going to actually address this.
I mean, I know we sort of said we don't know any of these that happened, but obviously the Jeff Gerstmann thing, it feels like explicit details never came out about those things, but they never do. But that, and wasn't there like a driver game that made headlines for having like paid, like
that's ringing a bell,
promotional considerations tied to reviews or something like to say that this stuff doesn't happen, especially at incredibly high budget, high level talks, would obviously be false because it happens everywhere in all media in various places. I don't think that it directly touches the actual people writing the articles in the way that one might immediately jump to, with the exception of times when it becomes a blow up noteworthy exception to the rule, like the Jeff Gerstmann thing. Like, and the other thing is, like, its presence as a possibility is very different from it being the default place that you jump when something happens that you don't like. And that's the thing that I think we're mostly trying to refer to as, like, this doesn't make sense to me because it doesn't match with my worldview. It's probably a buyout. It's probably a buyout. It's probably a conspiracy. It's probably not. I mean, it could be.
Right. But Occam's razor usually applies, right?
Yeah.
Usually the reason this person gave the game a negative review is because they didn't find the game to be good.
There are probably situations similar to the Gerstmann GameSpot thing that happened and went the other way and the person wasn't fired or didn't quit. But also, they're probably infrequent enough. Well, like, I think you hear about a lot more people getting fired or walking out of jobs because of paid reviews, because there are enough reporters with scruples in the world that if that came across people's desks, they wouldn't just be like...
I think most of this stuff comes out, and I think... Speaking of which, I think one of the things that suggests this probably is not super common in the kind of media we're talking about is because we do end up finding out about it in places where it is rife in this industry, such as
like YouTube streamers.
Yeah. Like, that is kind of
Like
that apparently
paid
is just
consideration and
all over the
sponsorship is all over
goddamn
the place in that.
Yeah,
And
right.
mobile
Without being
games, too.
disclosed, which is the
Or like
important part.
I remember people were surprised in a way that surprised me when it was revealed that the Conan O'Brien Clueless Gamer thing is like a total roll of the dice whether or not it's a promoted segment or a segment because they're like his writing team and community
Just thought it was
team
funny, yeah.
just thought it'd be funny. They don't differentiate when he's like
Yeah, like there's actually a really great segment on John Oliver's show Last Week Tonight that you can see on that show's YouTube channel if you just search for YouTube John Oliver. He did a segment on native advertising, which is really good in this regard. That's all about the rise of this phenomenon of media outlets running advertising that is styled to look not identical to, but very similar to their mainline reporting. And it's a weird fucking thing. Like that, there's like, to me, because advertising's everywhere, right? Like we do advertising on this show, but like there's a big difference between kind of not really disclosing it and just stating.
We're even farther from the line than traditional advertising, though, as a podcast, because podcast advertising, the hosts just break from the show and we read the ads ourselves. We're encouraged by advertisers to talk about our personal experiences with the brand in a way that does not happen on television shows and hasn't happened since like the Flintstones were animated smoking cigarettes
Right.
to advertise cigarettes. Like, you know, not in the episode, but like fades out to a commercial, then it fades up and Fred Flintstone is sitting there saying, I love cigarettes, you should smoke them. Like that's the model that podcast advertising uses, which kind of...
Well, sort of, except that Fred Flintstone doesn't break character to state that he's doing...
This episode of the Flintstones is sponsored by...
Marlboro,
Yeah, no, that's true. But like we opened this episode with 30 funny domain names that we thought were hilarious because we were paid
because
to say that
sponsored
stuff.
by... Well, we weren't paid to say those things, but yes.
We were paid
exactly.
to discuss things.
Right.
I think there's a huge sort of class issue at the core of this. You know, I think if there are conversations happening where somebody's trying to buy someone out, so to speak, you know, buy out good editorial coverage, it's happening at such a high level. You know, it's not happening to the scrub writer who, like, you know, has 10 hours to play this game and try to finish it and that sort of thing. You know, I could say, like, as a reviewer, I've never been solicited for any of this stuff, but I've certainly seen emails where, you know, a mobile game company with, you know, not perhaps the best history or the best morals has you know, tried to say something about like, all right, how much for, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff does happen, but in the mainstream game industry, in sort of the games that we would review at Polygon, that sort of thing, it's very much like I can hardly imagine that happening because, you know, the writers are separated in such a way from like the people who actually make money for the website. You know what I mean? Like things are divided in such a way
I guess
that
that's why on like YouTube streaming.
Right, because there isn't this division of labor. Exactly.
And that I guess is why something like Idle Thumbs is in between those two, right? Because we're not the actual people who sell the ads. There's a different company that does that. So we're not actually like soliciting money personally, but yeah, it's sort of in between those other two poles, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird thing.
It's weird.
We definitely have in my office, like, you know, I sit next to the ad people and like there have been conversations about like what we cannot talk about together because of things like this.
Traditional,
because of this
like,
whole
separation
thing.
of
Because
church
it's
and
like,
state. Yeah.
no, you can't tell me what game did well or whatever, and now we have ad sales. Like you can't tell me about that because it's not fair. You know, it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's weird though. It is a weird thing, and it's a strange thing in exactly what you're talking about in this landscape where it's like some of these divisions don't make the kind of sense that they used to make anymore. Some people who work on products also are working on ads, it's
right. It's because
you know.
It's because to maintain that distinction, you need to employ enough people that you can have those be separate departments, and that's getting harder and harder for media outlets.
And that's even hard even when you have a massive staff too. Just considering how weird and different and sort of unexplored some of the territory is about making money online.
There are still some hard and fast rules that you can choose to adhere to or not. I mean, like the Conan O'Brien stuff and YouTube streamers feel like it's 100%. They're in the exact same boat to me, which is someone comes up to them and says, I will give you a lot of money to dedicate your main content to my content.
Right.
That's the place where it gets completely insane.
Yeah. No, that's clearly.
But like there are circles in which that is 100% fine now.
Right, like those ones.
Right, but those are also
those
not.
two, yeah.
But like,
yeah.
That's not even a conspiracy.
Massive.
There's no conspiring in that case at all. Like, there's nothing to. It's just literally someone saying, "Yeah, okay," and just doing it. Like, there's there's no collusion. There's no masterminding. It's just like,
right. I
will take your dollars to do an episode about your thing.
Right.
Done.
It's above board to everyone except the people watching it. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
a weird thing.
It's strange.
Yeah.
Ethics.
Yeah, I would like to thank Toxikk for
policy.
sponsoring this episode of Idle Thumbs.
Xibalba, thanks for
yeah.
Thanks for making it all
I'd like
happen.
to thank the Alien Quadrilogy on Blu-ray.
I purchased it on YouTube. Hey, does that mean I'm a YouTube shill if I purchased it on YouTube?
That is,
You purchased it on YouTube?
I did. Wow. I purchased every one of those movies on YouTube.
I know that's been a thing for years, but I still...
It's
that
crazy,
would be the
huh?
last place...
It's not on Amazon.
But did you know, Chris, that you can? This segment masterfully sponsored by YouTube. Like,
Fox has all their classic movies.
God, that would be the most.
Imagine this conversation happened if played for laughs in an episode of New Girl. Ba ba ba. Like, I mean,
Jesus Christ.
I think the bottom line is have an ethics policy and stick to it.
But yeah,
I mean, that's the only thing that you can.
I think the
point
bottom
to
line is
when
have
something
ethics.
Happens. How do bottom lines have ethics? That's a good point.
Yeah. All right. So Dante Douglas writes, "Hi, I'm Dante. Just a quick clarification on genes regarding the discussion about Alan Wake's genes."
Yes.
So, Dante,
is this the guy who wrote us before?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Oh wait, no, sorry. This is the email we already read.
Oh, what?
I was gonna say,
I was like follow up. Oh.
I listened to that episode and I was really enlightened by genes.
My God.
I thought he was writing a follow up. I guess I forgot to move this to the right category. So I know, man. Hey Dante, if you want to write us back,
my God,
genes,
more fashion advice.
That's fine.
And let's analyze all the characters.
We would obviously enjoy it.
Yeah. Sad now.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, that was my bad. I got you all excited.
Oh my God.
Unduly.
I learned so much.
I wanted more Alan Wake gene tips.
Yeah, I learned so much from listening to that letter.
When people just write us those huge info dump emails, it is an incredible experience.
It's so great.
Oh, we should mention Sean Lane, known as Synthetic Gerbil on the Idle forums, did a crazy motion graphic treatment of the Cyberpunk Cop-Killer conversation from the episode Cyberpunk Cop-Killer. It's on our blog, blog.idlethumbs.net. You should just check it out. It's really good.
That's really good.
It's really
all right. So Sean Malloy writes, LARPing Minecraft. Dear Idle Thumbs, love the podcast, and I'm super stoked you've brought Danielle on full time.
Thank you, everyone.
I was just at the park with my 2-year-old, and while
we're only reading the emails that say that. By the way.
Not the ones that say kill her and bury her somewhere. Yeah.
I was just at the park with my 2-year-old, and while she was on the swings, I listened to a group of older kids, say 8 to 10 years old, who were, for a lack of a better term, LARPing a Minecraft session.
Oh,
yes.
That's so cute.
One kid was acting as kind of a DM and was calling out threats. Spiders over there, skeletons, while the rest were pretending to shoot arrows. Once someone was judged to have died, the DM kid would yell, "You have respawned with 24 arrows and 3 sticks." That by itself was pretty trippy, but the capper was the following exchange. Kid 1, "Skeletons are attacking." Kid 2, "I'm using my AK-47." Makes machine gun noise. Kid 1, "There are no AK-47s in Minecraft." Kid 2, "It's a mod." Kid 1, "No mods."
Oh my God.
The 21st century is weird. Cheers, Sean Malloy.
Fuck that. That's the best. What? Sorry. Like, that hit me and sank in and then disappeared and then hit me like 3 times harder. It's a mod. There are no mods.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God.
That's incredible.
The part of Nick Brecken's reaction will be played by Jake Rodgers. Fuck.
Yeah.
That's magical.
Yeah, that's good. Whatever.
It's really
Good
magical.
work. Good work, kids. Good work, Notch.
All right, last email here. Max Fuller writes, "Hey, Sean, Chris, Jake, Danielle, and maybe Nick." Nope. Last week, you guys mentioned the old Blades design of the Xbox, and Sean said, "The 13 or 14-year-olds who listen to Idle Thumbs have no idea what we're talking about. I'm mailing you this to say I am 13, and I do remember the Blades UI.
Oh.
Me and my brothers had it on our Xbox 360 for quite a long time because we had no way to update the software. This sounds like the sounds that I think Sean was making fun of when you scroll through the UI were very nostalgic. Something I've never really felt before because of my age. It made me remember when we first got our Xbox 360 and I was maybe 7 and we only had Need for Speed, Oblivion, and Trivial Pursuit. So I used to just play Oblivion, but I was too shit at it and I had no idea what was going on, so I just rolled around on the horse. Thanks for the podcast, Max. I love that email.
That is so beautiful. I love those 3 games. Those are the 3 games.
I know, that's such a classic. Like
the family got a system for Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever they celebrate. And they got
Oblivion, Need for Speed, and Trivial Pursuit. That is such a plausible, obviously it was real. That's such a totally perfect thing to have for years on your console where you weren't able to update the system software because it wasn't there wasn't a place you could plug it in your family's house, and it wasn't a priority to your parents, right? Like as an adult, if you have that console, you can just arrange your house the way that makes that work. But if you're a kid, it's like, look, we're not gonna run a cable. This is what you got.
We bought you.
You're gonna have to live with these fucking blades,
right?
But whatever. Feel fortunate. You got to live in Allard's world a little longer than the rest of us.
And how great is it that this is like a child experiencing nostalgia for the first time?
I know.
Like that is amazing.
I'm sorry because you're listening to this episode and we're just being old idiots about it. But
no, this is amazing. I love this.
Really great.
I love this so much.
Yeah, that kid is awesome.
Also, this guy interviewed me and Sean and intends to interview you as well, Jake,
yes,
for our forums. So
I have to respond to his questions.
Yeah, this kid seems pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Go, Max.
I know. That's the best. All right.
Blades.
Yep.
Now I'm so glad we talked about blades.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
It's all that. Oh, man.
This kid had their first
nostalgic response
experience
to that shitty whooshy blade noise that we made last week.
Yeah. Someone on the forums somehow also had access to an Xbox 360 that still has blades.
Yeah, it was like his friend did the same thing, didn't plug it in, because the 360 did not have Wi-Fi, right? So you had to have a wired connection for it. Until way late models, I think maybe they added it, but the original 360 I think was just a wired connection.
Yeah.
Mine was from 2008 and it's
forums,
still... Yeah.
Someone of the forums had access to his friend's 360 with blades and vined the blades.
Yes!
Yeah. For the Thumbs
so
forums.
good.
It's crazy that the Xbox 360 was marketed as the intro to the HD era, but it didn't have Wi-Fi and it didn't have HDMI.
Yeah.
That's true.
Fucking nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Weird.
Yeah.
Consoles.
If you have a question or overheard some kids doing something crazy or have a nostalgic response to fucking blades, write us at questions@idlethumbs.net.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week. You're supposed to say bye now out loud.
Bye.
Bye.
That's how you always end the episode.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's better when Danielle does it. Unless you want to talk about more stuff.
This episode was brought to you by World of Tanks. Go to playtanks.us and use the offer code THUMBS in all capitals.
I'm not spelling it this time.
They know how to spell thumbs. They listen to idlethumbs.net.
I hope so.
Use the offer code THUMBS in all caps at playtanks.us for exclusive deals and also to access hundreds of tanks.
They listen to idlethumbs.computer.
That's true. idlethumbs.computer. Bye.
Bye-bye.
There you go. There it is. That's the stuff.
That's the stuff.
That's the stuff.
That's the stuff.
That was lovely.
I really enjoyed that episode. Yeah,
it was really fun. Talked about aliens.
God, it's crazy that we have